And that's House Speaker Mike Johnson with me on Sunday Morning Futures on Sunday, discussing what's next in the Trump agenda and the congressional agenda. The Senate is expected to vote on a GOP-led rescissions package this week, which would codify $9.4 billion in federal spending cuts. On the table, cuts to public broadcasting and foreign aid. Joining me now is Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, a member of the Senate Banking and Appropriations Committee. Senator, it's good to see you. I mean, it's hard to say, well, the rescissions package is going to stop foreign aid, because that's really not what was USAID. When you say foreign aid, you think it's all this, aid to poor people. But what we realized when we peeled back the onion is that it wasn't that at all.
No, it's amazing what we found when we looked into it. And the amount of this rescissions package, I think, is just a start. I think your interview with the Speaker was absolutely wonderful in terms of laying out the fact that we're on a progression to actually bring fiscal responsibility back to America. It's going to take several steps, but this rescission package that's coming before us this week, an incredibly important first step. What we're going to see is a cutback on programs that have been wildly mismanaged. And if you think about the way these programs have been allowed to grow, I mean, we're funding lesbian programs in Canada. That's absolutely ridiculous that the U.S. taxpayer should be on the hook for these types of boondoggles. So this is a first major step. I'm looking forward to getting it passed this week and continuing down the path of fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, I want to get your take on this package that the president has put forth on Russia. But first, let me get your take on what's going on this week on the Hill, and that is Crypto Week, where you're expecting to discuss three landmark bills: the Clarity Act out of the House, the Genius Act out of the Senate, and the Anti-Central Bank Digital Currency Surveillance State Act, all aimed to create a more structured and transparent digital market. Senator, what should we understand about these three bills?
I think the most important thing to understand of all, Maria, is the fact that the United States is turning the tide. The Biden administration did everything they could to wage war on the crypto industry here in America, to shove that sort of innovation offshore. We've taken major steps here with this legislation to bring it back, to create a regulatory framework that actually works here in America. I'm the author of the stablecoin legislation. I've had great assistance from Tim Scott, our chairman, from Cynthia Lummis, the members of the Banking Committee here. French Hill and his team over in the House of Representatives have been absolutely wonderful to work with. And we have put together something on stablecoins that the president will be ready to sign at the end of this week. Stablecoins is basically a new payment system. It puts us into the digital asset arena, and it takes us off of a system, Maria, that was designed back in the 1970s and 80s, very clunky, taking sometimes 5 to 10 days to clear, moving it onto the blockchain. Far more efficient, far more secure. And what this does is bring America into the 21st century, but importantly, it sets the groundwork for the entire crypto industry to thrive here in America. And that's what the Clarity Act is about. That's what this Anti-Central Bank Digital Currency Act is about. It's moving this technology forward here in America and making certain we own this innovation going forward.
Well, what about this Surveillance Act, Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act? Look, I like the Genius Act and the stablecoin legislation largely because it's based on the dollar. And it will make it easier for people to move money across the world, right?
Absolutely, it'll make it easier. It'll make it easier to move dollars, which again reinforces the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. And importantly, Maria, each of these digital dollars are going to be backed one for one by U.S. Treasury securities. That's going to stimulate demand for U.S. Treasuries. That's going to bring the increased demand is going to bring rates down. That's going to be very positive for our borrowing cost right now at a time where we could use it. There are many reasons to love this bill. The working capital that it brings back into the system, again, instead of being tied up 5 to 10 days waiting to clear, immediately coming back to the hands of middle and small size companies that can put that asset to work. I think we're going to see a lot of positive results, but importantly still, we're going to see this technology thriving here in America again. The anti-central bank component of it, I think that may seem strange, but there is a large number of my colleagues here in the Senate, Elizabeth Warren, probably the leader of this group, that are proponents of central bank digital currencies, meaning they'd like to be able to see and surveil every transaction that Americans make. I don't think Americans want that at all, because they've seen Operation Choke Point take many different forms. We do not want to empower the federal government to do that yet again.
Yeah, that's a great point. We'll be watching that. All right, let me move on to Russia, Senator, because there's deep support within the Senate for Russia sanctions. President Trump giving Putin a 50-day deadline now to end the war, threatening 100% secondary tariffs on Russia's trading partners if a deal is not reached. So if China and India want to buy oil from Russia, they'll face 100% tariffs. Comes on the heels of the president making another deal with NATO members for European allies to buy billions of dollars in American weapons from our weapons makers and then go on to distribute those to Ukraine. Senator, your reaction to this, how do you expect this to play out?
I think it's a very positive development, Maria. You know that President Trump has gotten to the end of his rope dealing with Vladimir Putin and Zelensky, trying to bring this, trying to resolve this conflict in Ukraine. And what he's done is taken a major step forward, demonstrating his resolve, but he's done it in a way that takes the American taxpayer off the hook. He puts the Europeans on the front line. He's going to be depleting their stockpiles, not American stockpiles, and they're going to be paying for it. So I think that moves very much in the direction that he's articulated for some time. The other thing that's important here, Maria, is he's issued a 50-day timeline. Just ask the Iranians. When President Trump issues a timeline, he expects it to be followed, and if they're not followed, the consequences can be serious. When he talks about sanctions at this level, secondary sanctions, I can tell you, because I've been on the front line of imposing secondary sanctions when I worked in the first Trump administration. My job was to work on the Iranian regime and to stop countries around the world from buying Iranian crude oil. I got that done in Japan. It happened around the world. We brought Iran to its knees, and had it not been for voices like John Kerry pleading with them to wait just beyond the election to see if Joe Biden might win, we would have had a very different situation in the Middle East. We're coming back to that strategy now, and President Trump has more than 3 years ahead of him to impose these sanctions. They're going to be crippling. I think the Russians understand this, and most important, they know President Trump means business.
Well, that's right. And he just showed us how much he means business with the Iran situation. He told Iran something's got to be done within 60 days. On day 61, Israel went in there. Now he's telling Russia something's got to be done in 50 days. And if not, the trading partners will face the sanctions. I like the idea that it's a twofer, though, that he's forcing or coming to this agreement with our NATO allies for them to spend the money. So taxpayers are not on the hook for sending this weaponry to Ukraine.
That's a great point, Maria, but I think you're exactly right, and I can't underscore this enough. Vladimir Putin knows, and President Trump has demonstrated his resolve, 50 days means 50 days. And if he violates that timeline, the consequences will be severe. Now we finally have, under Secretary Scott Bessent, we finally have the capacity back to enforce our sanctions. Under Joe Biden, sanctions enforcement went away. And that really is sad, because we had capable people at the U.S. Treasury that were responsible for doing this. They were told to stand down. Now Secretary Bessent is bringing in a team that understands exactly how to do this. We're going to see real results here. All
right. I know the supporters in the Senate. Mike Johnson told me that he would bring it to the floor in the House as well. So we'll be watching the developments there. Senator, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you. Bill Hagerty joining us on Capitol Hill. We'll be right back.
When you can't